So this is why everything needs to happen in its time. I started to roll this on my roller. I took off the ends because they were catching, because there was little T ends, and I started rolling, not anticipating any problems. But it started pulling strings from further down the line, not just the string that I wanted it to pull, not just what I like to call the active strand of yarn, which would be this one. It started to pull future strands of yarn, and it made a big mess. That's going to be hard to figure out. So to me, that brings to mind, it's like an analogy of life, that sometimes things are supposed to happen in their time, that other future things that you may be looking forward to, even like I was looking forward to unspooling this whole skein of yarn right now. I was anticipating that, and yes, it was going to happen in the near future, but because I tried to make it all happen faster, and then it all ended up happening at once, that wasn't the design that the yarn maker had for it. The design the yarn maker had for it was not for it to be unusable. Well, it'll be usable when I fix it, but just keep that in mind, that sometimes even if we want things to happen now or faster, it'll just make a big mess. And that's why it's good to have patience, because we don't know the design, we don't know how everything is going to unravel, but if we try to make it unravel too quickly, then we might just end up with a big mess. And there's only one God who knows the full design and the full unraveling, and if we put our trust in Him, like if I had not removed the corners, it started out like this. This is another one. That's how it started out. If I had honored the barriers that were put there, the time constraint, if you want to say, because the reason I removed them is because when I was unraveling it with this, the yarn was catching on here, and so I would have to, it would slow me down. If I had respected the constraints that were put in place, then actually it would have ended up a lot easier for me, a lot tidier, I wouldn't have had the mess. So just keep that in mind the next time that you want something to hurry on and hurry up. So here is another analogy to get from this mess of yarn. I was trying to work from the tidy end and slowly trying to figure out a way to unravel this mess so that I could bit by bit spool more of the yarn into the spool. Finally, I realized that the best way to do this is going to be to find the end in the knot, and then once I find the end, it's a lot easier to make a ball to organize that little piece that I can get a hold of. So I'm going to find that piece, that one little piece that I can control, and I'm going to make it into a little organized ball and roll the ball all the way through all the knots, navigating all the complexities, until finally that ball rolls up and meets the main strand. And then I can spool my yarn onto one cohesive ball. So the analogy is that sometimes you need to start from the tiny piece that you can control. Control that until it gets bigger and bigger. And then eventually you'll be able to control, maybe not the whole thing, but in life you'll be able to control much more if you just start from the small thing that you can control and build up from that. Another thing that I noticed when I was raveling or unraveling this is that sometimes you drop the ball, because I dropped the ball when I was unraveling it. And then also when you look at your problem, your knotted yarn, in hindsight, so when you're looking at it from the after the mess already happened, you find that little strand and you're discovering all the knots. You're discovering which wrong turns the string made. It's easier to see in hindsight. It's easier to figure out in hindsight. Much more so than when you're at the present, which was the yarn that was already on the spool, looking forward towards all the knottiness, the knotness that's too involved to fix. So find the point in your mess, unravel that point bit by bit, detangle that bit by bit, and eventually you'll find something beautiful and manageable. And it won't be such a mess anymore. Say some prayers and take God along with you. And together you'll get through it. God bless.